the Real Talk Radio Network.
Hey, we're back on the reckoning. Ryan Haidt here, cruising into this last half hour of the program. And I am very glad to be joined now on the phone. We're going to talk here with Mr. William F. Jasper. He is the senior editor of the New American Magazine. That is a news source you all hear me quote often. Also the president of the John Birch Society. But I tell you what, Mr. Jasper has been involved in an incredible amount of work, attending UN meetings across the world for 30 years. And I can't think of a better group of folks than the New American Magazine, the John Birch Society, that keep their finger on the pulse of what is happening when it comes to the globalist entanglements, really, that the deep state has continued to push us toward for decades and decades now, and what we must do under the Trump era to try to disentangle ourselves. So I'm glad to be joined on the line with him now. Mr. Jasper, how are you today? Thank you for being with me.
Well, doing very well. Thank you for having me on, Ryan.
Absolutely. I'm glad to do it. And I know that my listeners are quite familiar. We talk with Alex Newman every so often and have a lot of connection in. But I really wanted to get your take on a little bit of what's been going on, because I know you guys, like I said, you keep your finger on the pulse quite a bit of what's happening. But we have certainly seen, and I mean, we could, a whole separate show we could devote to just the shenanigans around domestic policy today. But putting that aside for the moment, the United States, the Trump administration, has really just faced an incredible set of challenges coming into office. The Russia-Ukraine war and the mess that has been left for them from the last 4 years, the Biden administration, or I guess I should say whoever was signing the auto pen. And then, of course, this Iran conflict that just started and then almost ended as soon as it began. There are a lot of opportunities here to get involved in a way that the U.S. has just been doing for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And it seems that the promise of an America First foreign policy really is being held to in the Trump administration. I just want to get a sense overall with some of these conflicts they've just found themselves in. What would you give a rating to the Trump administration on their foreign policy moves in Israel, Iran, and Ukraine? How do you think they're doing at this point?
Well, it's a mixed bag, as you point out. And I've been on many programs and give the Trump team credit and President Trump himself for changing course, both rhetorically and policy-wise, on particularly our foreign policy. He went into the election promising to take us out of the forever wars, that we're not going to get involved in all these overseas entanglements that Republicans and Democrats have launched us into repeatedly, always in the name of world peace and trying to end the war on terrorism, etc. And then we end up getting bogged down in this. And so we have the war parties, both Republicans and the Democrats, led by globalists. And here's another area where we have to give Trump credit. For many decades, there was a very small portion of us on the right, on the independence and sovereignty right, who were stressing that our foreign policy had been led and been dictated by globalists, particularly those in the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg, World Economic Forum. These are all people who are dedicated to destroying our national sovereignty and merging us into a new world order, a world government. And that used to be considered really fringy, far out conspiracy theory extremism. And now it isn't anymore.
Right.
For one reason, President Trump has called it out himself. And so people say, hey, I guess you can not only survive, but thrive by recognizing the reality. And secondly, but even more importantly, is it has become so obvious that those of us who have been warning about this for decades, which includes certainly Phyllis Schlafly and over the decades, were right on this. And President Trump is the first one in my lifetime, I'm in my 70s now, that we have seen break from this. You can go clear back to World War II to FDR, and the Republicans and Democrats since then have been dominated by these globalists. And he went to the United Nations and says, we're not for globalism, we're for nationalism, we're for independence and sovereignty. We're going to protect our own borders, we're going to defend our own country, and we put America first. And that was a game changer. And yeah, your audience is well aware of the howls that we heard from not only the far left Democrats, but also from the America Last internationalist Republicans. So there has been definitely a game change there. But having said all of that, and we could point out a whole number of things where he withdrew us from the Paris Agreement, from the World Health Organization, from a number of UNICEF, UNESCO, etc. So we give him credit on a lot of those areas. But we're very fair and even-handed on there. We are a very, very strong constitutionalists, and we have problems with some of his executive orders and some of his decisions, particularly with war powers, that will come back to haunt us when a Democrat is in there, because these are reinforcing precedents that have already been set previously by Democrats and Republicans.
Well, let me ask you that. When it comes to the U.S. involvement in the United Nations, I kind of wonder where we're going. It seems like that's gone a little quiet. I know that, obviously you all, the Birch Society and New American, and very much in agreement with mild boss Phyllis Schlafly and what we still say at the Phyllis Schlafly Eagles: get us out of the United Nations altogether. However, what I wondered was how this would really play out in the Trump 47 world. And, they originally nominated Elise Stefanik, pulled her back, claimed it was because they needed a vote in the House. But then one of the figures I was kind of worried about, Mike Waltz, coming in as the national security advisor, he was plucked, it seemed pretty purposefully, and put over into that role. But I haven't heard anything about it since then. So, what's your take on this with our involvement with the United Nations? Is it really down the line a back burner for the Trump administration? They're just not pulling us out, but they're ignoring it? Or is there something that we should be concerned about there or looking at?
A very, very good question and very important point. Yeah, so the Trump administration and President Trump himself have at least led with the impression that they're for withdrawing from the United Nations. But we have bills now to actually pull us out of the United Nations. The Defund Act, which was introduced in the Senate by Senator Mike Lee, and in the House by Chip Roy, I believe. And that is to remove the United States, cut off our funding, and remove our membership from the United Nations. And really, this is the only solution to this. We have our latest issue of the New American, which is the cover story and all of the package, the whole package of stories about the United Nations and how it is a threat to us as a nation, economically, politically, militarily, migration-wise, etc. All of these things, these are not going to be fixed by many of the conservatives who are calling for halfway measures. They say, oh, no, we can't get out because then Russia and China will have too much control there. We have to stay in and reform the United Nations. I've done articles in the past showing all the proposals for reforming the United Nations. There have been literally dozens over the last 40, 50 years to reform the United. It never happens, and it's not going to happen. You can't reform the mafia. You can't reform the Communist Party or the Nazi Party. They are flawed from the beginning, and the United Nations was flawed from the beginning in its founding document, in its founding conference, and in its makeup. And so it can't be reformed. We have to cut off the funding and withdraw. And I think President Trump is inclined in that direction if he heard a groundswell from members of Congress and from the public, the MAGA public. He would move in that direction, I believe. So he still has, this time around, Trump 47 is much better than Trump 45 in terms of appointments. First time around, those of us who watch closely were groaning many times with his appointments. And we said, look, that's another Council on Foreign Relations member, whether it was McMaster or John Kelly or whomever. They're going to end up betraying him. And without exception, they did. They ended up stabbing him in the back. And then after he fired him, they continued to work to undermine him. And so there have been literally dozens of examples of those kinds of appointments. This time around, it's been better, but there are still some troubling appointments, and it's clear that some of the appointments, even if they aren't out and out internationalists, are counseling him to take a more moderate approach on things. So what they would define as moderate. So yes, it's going to take you, me, and everyone listening here to get relentlessly contacting their senators and their representatives to say, hey, look, we need to cut off the funding. We need you to get on board with the Defund Act and support that. And now is the time. We've never had a better time to get us out of the United Nations. That's one thing that we keep very much on top of at the John Birch Society and at the New American Magazine. And very few, you won't see on Fox News, for instance, coverage, and they should have been all over this, last month when the United Nations voted in favor of this global maritime tax. This would be, once this goes into effect, if it does go into effect, if our Congress doesn't do something about it, you will be taxed by the UN. It will be taxed on all maritime traffic. That means all shipping. Most of the products you get today come into this country by ship, and including much of our energy. And so under this plan, every one of those shipments would be taxed by the UN. And maybe we wouldn't be paying it directly, but those companies and those businesses that are doing that, they would be forced to pay it, and you would be paying it indirectly in the price of everything you buy. And that's just the start. I mean, there are so many programs under the Agenda 2030 program of the United Nations for so-called sustainable development that intend to attack every one of our individual liberties, every one of our nation's national sovereignties. So now is the time to get us out.
Absolutely. Now is the time. Hey, in my last minute or so with you here, let me ask real fast. One of the other things I have been waiting for in this second term of Trump, I was promised we were reclaiming U.S. sovereignty over the Panama Canal, and Greenland might even be coming in as a little bit of a bonus. But I wonder, where has that gone? Obviously, some big strides were made, but I know that this is a particular issue. I think you have a good take as well. I know my old boss, Phyllis, did as well, about the actual legitimacy of the treaty to begin with. But where does that stand? I haven't heard anything for quite a while. Are there rumblings of more victories in the Panama Canal when it comes to reclaiming U.S. sovereignty?
Well, we certainly hope so, and we intend to make it so. I was delighted, as I'm sure many others were, because when Trump announced that we were going to take back our canal in Panama, because it is the American canal, is the United States of America canal. We built it, we paid for it, we bought it. It was our territory, the same as Alaska and Hawaii and other territories that we have around the world. I did a full hour webinar on this, which is available at jbs.org. Going into detail on this, you brought up that the treaties are invalid. Yes, they are invalid. President Carter lied to us. He lied to Congress, and he signed a treaty that was different from the one that was signed by President Omar Torrijos. In any kind of treaty law, contract law, that's fraud, and that invalidates the treaty from the start. So most people are unaware of that. Even many members of Congress, when I went there and met with members of Congress years ago, were unaware of that. So President Trump is on firm ground. Where does it stand right now? Well, the whole situation with BlackRock coming in to buy it up kind of muddies the waters there. Some of us would say it's not a whole lot of an improvement to have BlackRock occupy it over communist China. But that's still there are still some developments going on there.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it, indeed. Again, folks, Mr. William F. Jasper, senior editor at thenewamericanmagazine.com, thenewamerican.com, also president of the John Birch Society, jbs.org. Mr. Jasper, thank you for your time and your perspective. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Folks, we'll be right back. We got a few more minutes left this hour on The Reckoning.